I don't know how many of you recognized it. They kept saying we need help managing and organizing us traveling through it. It wasn't the prompts and the substance, it was the physical, how to do this huge big project, of course, while they're also student teaching. So that was very interesting to us. And you have to remember, okay, we put 107 candidates through. We knew that for one faculty member to teach a few students how to do TPA, maybe, you know, first time you might make a few mistakes, but that's not that hard. The challenge is how on earth do you get a program, a huge bucket load of 107 of them through it. And so what we found out by conventional measures, we failed. The candidates, you know, they did some things well and other things not well. Some of this is very common to programs already. We knew they tended to do much better on instruction than assessment. That came out very clearly in the scored numbers, and these were scored by Pearson in the field test year. More candidates did well on instruction, the number of candidates who did well. And the weakest area, again, we could predict, was assessment and this entirely new way of voicing, thinking, analyzing, teaching, certainly new for us. Maybe we live in a cornfield, but the academic language issue, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, all faculty should be trotting off and finding out what I'm talking about, because that is the piece that really tripped everybody up. Our scores compared to the rest of the state, we had one of those nice little tables sent to us by Pearson. I didn't put this on the slide. We scored on a 5-point scale. They haven't yet quite decided where the passing score is, but rumors kind of about 3-ish. We were 0.02 under the state mean on pretty much every rubric. We weren't discouraged by that. I had to keep taking that word out of administrators' reports that contain that number. I guess we weren't discouraged. Good gracious, what did you think was going to happen? We asked 107 candidates to do this with almost no help, and they actually did it remarkably well. Our scores tended to be 2 point something or others. I don't know whether the state mean, as I'm recalling, was actually over 3. But most programs who did this, you know, we picked a few candidates to do it. We just tromped everybody through it. So, what is happening this year? We realize over the summer, the committee of us met. We're now down to 3 on the committee. This is getting better and better. And I'm no longer program director. We've brought the new program director in, but she's still in learning mode. We analyzed the existing curriculum, and we said, what do we need to do? How do we need to do this? Tina Sloan at UC Santa Barbara has a very nice rhetorical question she asks about who should be involved in TPA. And I don't think she recommends the cable car. She basically says everybody should be involved in TPA. So we knew we wanted all faculty to be involved this year, because we figured we were going to make a mess of it. We better make a mess of it this year. And so over the summer we met, and the 3 of us identified, what are we doing right now in our courses? And could we use these as TPA? Absolutely. The assignments are fine. There's no problem with what we're doing in classes. The issue is the rubrics. So we identified for our faculty, okay, when you're doing this assignment, you could use these 2 rubrics, these 3 rubrics, these 4 rubrics. And that was our intended plan. And so what's happening right now is 7 supervisors, 5 faculty are all working with the TPA rubrics and are using these with candidates, and candidates are getting the regular instruction. And a new leadership model has emerged. You'll be glad to know we've left the cable car. Everybody's on board. Where are they going? They're meant to be on board. All right, we now have trolley car management. Trolley car leadership. Why trolley car leadership? Well, people kind of get on when they feel like getting on. You know, somebody's really confident sitting at the front looking out the window and they're doing all the TPA rubrics, and then somebody else is kind of lolling and chatting at the back and not really. I thought we asked you to do. No, I didn't know. And so it just is that process of people learning to do a new thing when there's a large group of you. And, you know, we can all laugh about it. We knew it would kind of be like this, but we didn't know exactly what it would look like. And this is what it looks like. We're trying to persuade people, you know, some faculty is doing a great job, and we have to sort of nestle up to them and say, now, why don't you talk to everybody else about what you're doing? You know, yes, faculty don't always do that. So, we certainly know the destination now. We know exactly where we're going. We have more information about the scoring. We know that faculty, there's going to be a process of people jumping on and off as they're getting used to this. And there's certainly faculty are beginning to use the rubrics. But, and so the questions really to think about are, as these leadership structures often just emerge. We didn't plan a trolley car this year. We didn't plan a cable car last year. You have an opportunity to think about what structure do we need. Now notice what we've also done. We've taken the TPA instruction out of that one monthly class where we could control the message, and it's now dispersed across the program. And that means there's multiple messages. And so you need to think about whether or not you want to do that. And I know people use different models. Some places have a TPA class. We went for the dispersed model, and it's probably gone a little bonkers in all honesty. So you have to ask yourself, what kind of leadership do you want to build for TPA, and what existing culture will you draw on? We actually have a very collaborative culture, and I think Dr. Busher will agree. Folks are very cooperative. Nobody's being difficult about this. It just is the practicality of being involved in multiple agendas and multiple programs. Also, what are the lines of authority? It's actually very difficult. I can't go and I'm not in charge of anybody. I'm not the program director. I mean, what is happening and who is actually directing what's meant to be happening? We don't have any authority as a committee. We had very different authority when I was on as the program director. So I think you should think about this. Now, what I want to do now is go back a little bit and revisit what's happened during this year, and just as the final section of this morning, and talk about what was our approach. I've told you what happened, this emergence of all sorts of trolley car management, but what was our approach? And, you know, prominent researchers for over a decade and increasingly have said we needed a clearer focus on practice. You know, the likes of Deborah Ball, James Hebert, they've been saying this for a long time, but actual practice. Literature is also clear. There's literature on performance assessment, and those who are familiar with it, that really warns about what can happen when a performance assessment is introduced into a teacher-ed program. And there is a clear thing that we need to watch for. While the focus on practice can be enormously beneficial, videotaping, looking at actual examples of teaching, great. The danger is, in the actual implementation, the whole thing shifts from inquiry and learning to compliance, teaching to the test. And that is incredibly hard to manage, make that not happen. You can see it in schools. Common Core could be wonderful. Will it be? No. It's all in how it's introduced. Now, two of us as faculty members, Ralph Cordova and myself, had been heavily involved with the National Writing Project work, and we were drawing on some of Carol Dweck's work. Some of you may be familiar with her work on mindsets. And also we looked at all kinds of innovation, and we drawing on the work of David Kelly out at Stanford, the CEO of IDEO. And we ourselves have put together with our writing project work a kind of a way to focus on inquiry. And we call this responsive design, and it just seemed natural, since we were the two faculty members on the committee, that we use this approach with our candidates. Now, what's significant about this inquiry model, it's a general inquiry model. You could use any inquiry model. But in this one, we emphasize, particularly in the center, prototyping. We wanted our candidates to think of themselves that everything they do is a prototype where you build to learn and you test it to see what happens. And that was the essential kind of identity we wanted to have for them. We ask them to explore, work out what is it you're trying to find out, envision what may happen, and then actually enact. And over on the enact, that's where you see the word failure. And we were very open with them. We said, look, that's how we learn. And you'll notice that we ourselves as faculty, we're also using that model. In what I've described to you, you know, entering 107 teacher candidates into the performance assessment the first year, definitely you know you're going to fail. But we were intending to fail fast, fail quickly, and sometimes people call it failing forward. You fail and you learn, and you're in a new place. And so we were actively using this model with our candidates. And we actually got them to use it. They wrote about their practice. And if I just give you a quick sort of overview of what this was, they would write, and at the top paragraph, this is a candidate writing on an electronic bulletin board. First, I wanted to explore how my candidates would, how my 7th graders would respond if I designed a lesson where they were making observations and inferences. He taught the lesson, so that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to know how it would go. He envisioned that 3/4 of his students would be able to take the assignment seriously, they'd be outside, they'd like it. Once he began to enact, so we gave them this simple protocol, we asked them to do 3 things they noticed. I noticed many students were somewhat unclear on the differences between observations and inferences, even though 10 to 15 minutes at the beginning of the period was devoted to working out the difference. Also, this wasn't the first time they've studied the two. I also noticed when I didn't give specific and clear directions, students often came up with silly or nonsense observations. For example, I observed it looks like someone's hiding in the woods, and I'm inferring someone's going to come after us. And the student said that after telling me they noticed a group of leaves that looked like someone hiding. I was confused as to why the student would use this as an observation, even though I stated several times that an observation must be made with one of the senses and be a proven fact. So you can hear how he's puzzling, but notice what he's doing. He's actually giving specific examples, specific evidence, and his reflective thinking about it and his analysis. And he goes on to notice other stuff, and in the end he had to sort of be a bit firmer with them. And I noticed immediately after being firm, students seem to lose excitement and engagement. So next time I think I've got to have clearer lesson objectives. I think it was too broad. And then one of his colleagues responds to this on the bulletin board. I think the way you designed it was great. I agree you need clearer goals and objectives, but I do think they were capable of completing the assignment. Several factors, such as the substitute for the day, and there was a sub in the room, and the students wanting to test you more than likely were the main issue. So, this wasn't do a TPA prompt. That's not what we asked them to do. We asked them to learn from their teaching, to inquire in their teaching. And what we ended up with was the kind of thinking and writing that TPA is asking for. And we were very pleased with that. And so that's why this year, this is what's happened to us. This is a quote. Most of our candidates would say that this year if you ask them. They aren't teaching us how to teach. They are just teaching us how to do the TPA. So from last year, when we thought we got the inquiry right, and then they did the TPA, to this year, remember the trolley car this year, all faculty involved, everybody doing their best? We've gone to compliance. We've gone to teaching to the test. Even though we thought we were trying not to. And that's part of the message of doing this. It's hard. We've obviously got to do a correction in here. So good intentions pave the way, as I grew up with that little phrase, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. You have to actually work out how to lead your entire program to the place you want it to go. And so, you know, I've said this, we essentially failed forward. Now, one of the ways of looking at this, of course, is that there are two trolleys in this picture. One is the inquiry trolley and the other is the compliance trolley. And it's very easy to get on the wrong one. So that's a message I want you to take away. As you lead through this culture, how will you do it? Now, I started off at the beginning just by saying that freezing to the face is the big danger. Freezing to the face is that compliance, that fear-based, you know, the more we tell them what's on the TPA, the better it'll get, and everything being about TPA. And if we are not going to be in that place, we have to really think hard about how we're going to do this so we don't throttle creativity and we don't invent a way of doing things that we do not need to invent. I think we can do TPA and still maintain our deepest values and passions, but we've got to be smart about it, and it may take us several years to get there. Now, this organization is well positioned for that because you are actively claiming the position of leadership, and I think you demonstrate that in the mix of folks you have in the room. And so I just encourage you to think of yourself as leaders, and as leaders, we all have to shape the way this turns out. If we don't, we will all end up on the wrong trolley, freezing to the face. Don't you love the way those metaphors crunch together? So what we want is a wonderful open, this is what we want, isn't it? To be on top of a nice hillside somewhere looking out to a glorious view of teaching rather than freezing to the face. So that's the